Here, good evening, everyone. WNBA Finals ready to tip off Game 1. It's our 29th WNBA Finals. Exciting night here in Las Vegas as the Aces prepare to take on.
Any panic going on in Wnba executive offices right now? If the thinking up there in league headquarters was that this organization was suddenly larger than just one transcendent talent, that their newly minted media deals and corporate sponsorships were built on a sustainable structural foundation rather than the gravitational pull of a single individual, well, now might be the time to hit the panic button. Exactly 48 hours after Caitlin Clark suffered a severe long-term injury that will sideline her for the foreseeable future, the market has responded. And the market has told the Wnba exactly what it needed to hear, stripping away the marketing spin and exposing the raw, brutal reality of their economic fragility. This is not a drill, and it is no longer an internet debate about who deserves credit for the league's growth. The numbers are rolling in, and they are doing the condemning for us, painting a picture of an institution that actively alienated its primary economic engine and is now watching that engine grind to a catastrophic halt. Exactly 48 hours after Clark went down holding her knee, the average secondary market ticket price for upcoming WNBA games plummeted by a staggering 68.4%. Television viewership projections for the upcoming weekend broadcast windows have been slashed by 5.2 million expected viewers, a devastating blow to networks that were suddenly banking on historic ratings to justify their massive production investments. The economic indicator has spoken, and what it is saying to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert in plain English is that the audience was never buying the Wnba product as a collective entity. They were buying an exclusive, high-stakes ticket to the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Without her, the product reverts instantly to its baseline value, leaving a trail of empty arena bowls, cancelled hotel reservations, and plummeting advertising spot rates. Let us examine what is truly taking place beneath the official press releases and curated public statements. Caitlin Clark will be sidelined and completely unavailable for at least 8 to 12 weeks, according to an official source close to the team's medical staff. But anyone who has experienced the realities of major ligament rehabilitation or high-impact athletic recovery understands that this official timeline is at best optimistic and at worst a desperate attempt to suppress stock market volatility and fan refunds. My money is on a minimum of 4 to 6 months before she exhibits anything resembling her peak lateral quickness and elite shooting velocity. This is not a minor adjustment or a brief mid-season rest period. This is a structural catastrophe for a league that front-loaded its entire national broadcast schedule around a single franchise. When a highly respected medical staff like the one overseeing NFL or NBA franchises evaluates an injury of this magnitude, an official timeline of 2 months almost always translates to a lost season once reconditioning and muscle atrophy are factored in. The Wnba is attempting to buy time, praying that season ticket holders will not demand immediate refunds if they believe their star will return for a late-season playoff push. But the market is far too smart to swallow the corporate spin. Here is where things start to get deeply interesting from an institutional cash flow perspective. A number of team owners, stadium operators, and commercial partners across the Wnba made massive financial commitments in anticipation of her presence, participation, and unmitigated drawing power. The Washington Mystics relocated their home game to the Capital One Arena, boasting a massive capacity of over 20,000 seats, specifically to capitalize on the surge in ticket demand. The Las Vegas Aces moved their highly anticipated matchup to the iconic T-Mobile Arena, preparing for a capacity crowd of 18,000 screaming fans paying premium ticket prices. The Atlanta Dream chose the prestigious State Farm Arena as their new destination, shifting away from their standard intimate facility to absorb the massive inflow of new consumers. These are not minor operational adjustments. We are discussing millions of dollars tied up in advanced marketing campaigns, expanded stadium staffing, heightened security protocols, and exorbitant venue rental fees that are all based entirely on the star power and physical presence of a single player. These teams did not take these high-risk actions with the intention of merely breaking even or enjoying good publicity. They anticipated sellout crowds, record-breaking jersey sales, and unprecedented food and beverage concessions revenue. Instead, they are now facing catastrophic net negative events, stuck with massive arena rental invoices and zero consumer demand to offset the costs. The fans' intentions are not subtle, nor are they hidden behind polite corporate diplomacy. People are actively deleting their League Pass accounts and demanding immediate cash refunds on social media platforms worldwide. One fan wrote that they spent $3,000 on travel, lodging, and courtside seats just to see Clark play, and they are now formally disputing the charges with their credit card company because the league failed to protect its primary asset from hyper-aggressive, targeted physical play. Another claimed that they have watched their final Wnba game of the year, stating explicitly that the constant hostility directed toward Clark by veteran players and the league's apparent refusal to call flagrant penalties made this injury completely inevitable. The sentiment is uniform across the board. No Clark, no cash. Season ticket holders are openly listing their packages on resale sites for pennies on the dollar, with listings for seats that once commanded $500 now sitting completely stagnant at a meager $15. The digital footprint left by this mass exodus is staggering, as search traffic for Wnba terms has collapsed by nearly 80% overnight, replaced by a surge in cancellation requests and angry customer service complaints. This brings us to the core structural crisis facing the Commissioner's office. The Wnba administration spent months attempting to walk a fine line between celebrating their historic new audience and appeasing a legacy base of players and commentators who grew increasingly resentful of the spotlight fixed on a single rookie. They tried to maintain the fiction that the league's sudden economic renaissance was a collective achievement, a rising tide that lifted all boats equally, due to decades of unrecognized excellence. But the market does not care about narrative equity, and it does not respect institutional feelings. The market operates purely on supply, demand, and cultural relevance. By failing to forcefully address the dangerous, borderline malicious physical targeting that Clark faced from her very first week in the league, the administration essentially allowed its most valuable asset to be treated as a political football. Now, the bill has come due, and the numbers are proving that without that single asset, the entire economic house of cards collapses under its own weight. Consider the broader implications for the league's newly negotiated media rights agreements, which were valued at billions of dollars over the next decade, based on the assumption of explosive, sustained viewership growth. Television networks did not sign those contracts out of a sense of altruism or a sudden passion for women's basketball. They signed them because Caitlin Clark was pulling in higher ratings than the NBA playoffs and Major League Baseball games. Advertisers paid historic premiums for commercial spots during her broadcasts, eager to get their brands in front of the millions of new eyeballs she brought to the screen. With Clark removed from the equation, those networks are now looking at empty time slots that will struggle to pull a fraction of the anticipated audience. The leverage the Wnba thought it had established for future expansion fees and corporate sponsorships has evaporated in a matter of seconds, leaving executive leadership scrambling to reassure furious network executives who feel they were sold a premium luxury product only to receive a standard, low-margin asset. Furthermore, the financial damage extends deep into the local economies of the cities hosting these games. Downtown business districts, parking garage operators, and hospitality venues had adjusted their seasonal projections to account for the massive crowds that followed the Indiana fever on the road. Restaurants located near arenas were reporting record game day revenues, hiring extra staff, and increasing inventory to meet the unprecedented demand. Now, those same businesses are bracing for a ghost town effect, as the casual fans who drove hours across state lines to witness history stay home, completely disengaged from a league that failed to safeguard its own golden goose. The economic reality is stark and unforgiving. You cannot build a sustainable sports entertainment empire by allowing the market's primary driver to be physically neutralized, while management stands by silently, terrified of upsetting the internal politics of the locker room. What we are witnessing is the ultimate validation of market prophecy, a textbook demonstration of institutional self-sabotage that will be studied in sports management programs for decades to come. The Commissioner's office is currently trapped in a state of absolute panic, holding emergency meetings with franchise owners and public relations firms to figure out how to salvage the remainder of the fiscal year. They will try to launch new marketing campaigns highlighting alternative stars. They will offer deep discounts on merchandise, and they will plead with the media to focus on the competitive balance of the league. But none of it will work, because you cannot manufacture authentic cultural gravity through corporate decree. The fans have made their choice, the money has fled the building, and the empty seats in every arena across the country stand as a silent, devastating monument to a league that let its greatest opportunity slip right through its fingers. The internal panic within the Wnba executive suites is palpable, characterized by frantic, late-night conference calls and emergency consultations with crisis management experts who specialize in institutional containment. For months, the league's top leadership operated under the comfortable delusion that the unprecedented surge in revenue was a permanent structural shift, a genuine awakening of the mainstream sports fan to the intrinsic value of their product. They patted themselves on the back, issued self-congratulatory press releases about the modern era of women's sports, and acted as though they had masterminded a brilliant cultural movement. But the sudden, violent removal of Caitlin Clark from the active roster has exposed this narrative as a complete house of cards, revealing that the entire economic boom was entirely dependent on a single player's ACL remaining intact. The reality that a single bad step on a hardwood floor could instantly wipe out 70% of the league's market value is a terrifying realization for executives who have already committed to massive operational budget increases based on projected revenues that will now never materialize. Let us examine the specific advertising metrics that are currently causing complete meltdown conditions within the sales departments of the WNBA's major broadcast partners. During the initial months of the season, primetime commercial slots during games featuring the Indiana Fever were commanding premium rates that rivaled established men's professional sports leagues, with major automotive, financial, and consumer goods brands bidding aggressively for a slice of the historic viewership. Those contracts, however, frequently contain performance clauses and viewership guarantees that protect the buyers if ratings fall below a specific, predetermined baseline. With Clark sidelined, the projected drop in viewership means these networks will be forced to provide massive make-good commercials and financial rebates to advertisers who are entirely uninterested in running high-priced ads during games that draw a fraction of the promised audience. The financial hit to the networks will be counted in the tens of millions of dollars, creating an immediate frost in relationships between the league and the very media executives who hold the keys to its long-term financial survival. The response from the core consumer base has been characterized by a cold, calculated withdrawal of capital, rather than an emotional, short-lived outcry. This is what makes the current boycott so incredibly dangerous for the Wnba. It is not an angry protest that can be smoothed over with a clever public relations campaign or a heartfelt letter from the commissioner. It is a quiet, systemic decoupling of the consumer from the product. Fans who had never previously engaged with the league are simply clicking unsubscribe on their streaming applications, turning off their televisions, and redirecting their disposable income toward other entertainment options. The sudden drop in digital engagement metrics across all platforms is historic in its velocity, with social media impressions, website click-through rates, and online merchandise orders crashing simultaneously in perfect alignment with the injury report. The league's attempts to redirect this traffic toward other talented players have fallen completely flat, proving that you cannot force an audience to care about an entire roster when they explicitly showed up to watch a singular, generational revolutionary change the game. To understand the full scope of this institutional failure, one must look at how the league managed the environment surrounding its premier asset during her brief, spectacular run. Instead of treating Clark with the protective care that every major sports league affords its top box office attractions, the Wnba allowed an atmosphere of intense physical intimidation and public resentment to fester completely unchecked. Veteran players routinely engaged in hyper-aggressive, non-basketball plays that were celebrated by a vocal faction of traditional analysts who claimed this was simply welcome to the league physical defense. The administration, terrified of appearing biased or alienating its legacy players, refused to implement stricter officiating standards or issue meaningful suspensions to deter behavior that put their primary economic driver at constant physical risk. Now, that lack of structural foresight has culminated in a devastating injury that penalizes every single franchise, every stadium worker, and every media partner who depended on Clark's health to sustain their operations. The financial crisis is hitting individual franchise owners with immediate, localized severity, particularly those who went deep into debt to upgrade their team facilities and charter private flights based on the promise of sustained sellout crowds. For years, Wnba franchises operated at a consistent net loss, subsidized by the NBA and relying on minimal operating costs to survive. The sudden influx of cash allowed owners to finally spend like major league entities, signing expensive venue leases, expanding front office payrolls, and investing heavily in premium fan experiences. Now, stuck with high fixed costs and a sudden collapse in variable revenue streams like ticket sales, parking fees, and stadium concessions, several small market franchises are facing severe liquidity crises that could jeopardize their operational stability before the season even concludes. The sudden transition from unprecedented economic euphoria to a bleak financial winter has left ownership groups furious with the league's central leadership, demanding accountability for a failure to protect the very golden goose that gave them a taste of true profitability. As the empty seats continue to multiply in arenas that were once packed to the rafters, the narrative control that the Wnba spent years cultivating is completely dissolving. No amount of carefully staged interviews, corporate spin, or statistical manipulation can obscure the visual reality of thousands of empty blue seats during a nationally televised game. The market has delivered its final, unappealable verdict. The WNBA did not build a self-sustaining sports empire. They stumbled into a cultural goldmine and then failed to protect the single individual who was doing all the digging. The commissioner stands in the center of a self-inflicted storm, watching the economic foundation of her league erode by the hour, serving as a stark warning to any institution that mistakes a singular, once-in-a-generation phenomenon for its own institutional brilliance. The fans have gone home, the money has vanished, and the long, cold silence echoing through the league's half-empty arenas is the sound of reality finally catching up with the spin. And this reality will stretch far into the next fiscal calendar, freezing expansion talks and completely decimating the bargaining leverage the Players Association hoped to bring to the table during their upcoming collective bargaining agreement negotiations. It is a masterclass in fumbling leverage, a live-fire demonstration of what happens when you prioritize internal locker room politics over objective market economics, and the damage will take a decade to repair.